Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Here with some thoughts on a issue that has been talked about in the public. It's been raised by Scottie Pippen. There have been uh, thoughts and responses from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Isaiah Thomas, and that's on the issue as the NBA Finals are going on of whether LeBron James is a better player than Michael Jordan. And Scottie Pippen, Jordan's teammate, apparently on an ESPN show, said that while Jordan was the best scorer in NBA history, that in fact LeBron James might actually be the better player. You know, all I can say about this is simply as you think about Michael Jordan, and as you think about Jordan's go to move, that turnaround jumper, which was automatic as Jordan got older, right? It was Jordan's version of the sky hook. He could go to that shot. That turnaround jumper was automatic. You need to ask yourself, and it was a mid range jumper. You need to ask yourself, what is LeBron James's automatic shot? He's been in the league 7 years, right? I'm a big fan of LeBron James's. I think he's the best in the game today. But ask yourself, what is his automatic shot, right? If he doesn't have one, then in my opinion, that's such a big part of basketball that Jordan necessarily would be the better player. In fact, if you look at the two guys, it's actually deeper than that. LeBron James is in his prime right now. He's in his mid to late 20s, right? These are when his numbers are probably going to be the best that they will be. Understand that right now, LeBron James does not match Michael Jordan in terms of free throw percentage. Jordan was in the 80s. LeBron James is not. And by the way, when I say Jordan was in the 80s, I'm talking about his career averages, not even his best averages, right? Jordan, career wise, is over 80% from the free throw line. Understand, too, that Jordan, career wise, and this includes his time spent with the Washington Wizards when he certainly wasn't at his prime, career wise, Jordan actually averaged more than 2 steals a game, more steals per game than LeBron James does right now in his prime. Not only that, in terms of shooting, understand that Jordan, career wise, and again, this is factoring in his 2 years with the Wizards, right? And keep in mind, he left the Bulls, was retired for a while, then came back with the Wizards. Even including those years with the Wizards, Jordan had a higher shooting percentage career than LeBron James has for his career right now. And keep in mind, James is in his prime. Let's talk about defense too. Both guys are above average defenders. LeBron James right now is getting incredible pub for a great job against Derrick Rose in the last series and a pretty decent job against Jason Terry in the in the second half of game one of the NBA Finals. But understand there's a difference defensively between the two men. There was a time when Michael Jordan wasn't a good defender, he was the best defender in the league. In the 87 to 88 season, understand that Michael Jordan won NBA Defensive Player of the Year. Prime Jordan was off the page. If you want a good argument, ask yourself whether Jordan was better offensively or defensively. He was off the page defensively. Now, LeBron James, he's an excellent defender, but Dwight Howard right now is in the middle of, a run as the NBA's Defensive Player of the Year. As good as LeBron James is, he's not the best defender in the league, which Jordan was. By the way, the same year Jordan won MVP of the All-Star game, the same year Jordan won NBA MVP, right? Try that for a trilogy. And so, let's go further. 5 minutes are left in a game. You need one guy. In fact, forget 5 minutes. That's too much time. Let's make it 5 seconds. 5 seconds are left in a game. You need for one guy on your team to take over, right? You want this guy to take the final shot. It's time to close it out. You want your best player to get you the win. You have one basketball. You have two guys, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. Be real with yourself and ask yourself, who do you want with the basketball? All I can say is maybe LeBron, and keep in mind, he's already older than 25. Maybe LeBron is going to develop into the consummate closer that Michael Jordan was. But for those of us who lived through the 80s and 90s, we know who the consummate closer was, and that was Michael Jordan. Kobe's doing a good job of it right now. Understand, when Jordan ruled the roost, there was no question who the best closer in the game was. It was Michael Jordan, right? Others were pretty good. Reggie Miller, I'll give him credit. He was a closer. Certainly, Robert Horry deserves consideration as a closer. But when Jordan ruled the roost, you'd be hard-pressed to even envision having Jordan pass that basketball to anyone else in the league. Right now, if the game's on the line, I'm not sure if the same can be said about LeBron James. As good as LeBron James is, I believe there are a few other guys around this league, Kobe Bryant being one of them, perhaps LeBron's own teammate, Dwayne Wade, being another, who you might prefer to have the basketball in the last 5 seconds. I'd love to hear from basketball fans here on YouTube, rather than LeBron James. I mean, Jordan is not only statistically better than LeBron James, but on a visceral level, when it comes to trusting the outcome of a game to your superstar with 5 seconds left, I don't think LeBron matches Michael Jordan there either. Let me also point out, too, and this might stun some people, but Michael Jordan, for his career, and again, LeBron's in his prime, but for his career, Michael Jordan averaged more points per game than LeBron James. And I'll say this, too. LeBron James was 4 of 5 from three-point range in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. He certainly has a three-point shot. But I would argue that LeBron James doesn't have what we used to call a mid-range game. I believe this is what Isaiah Thomas was getting at. It's that Glenn Robinson, Alex English, Terry Teagle game. And if you don't know who these guys are, you need to do some Google searches. But it's that what we used to call pop-up jumper game, where a guy in traffic can literally just pop up and nail that jumper. Kobe Bryant right now has that mid-range game, right? Kobe's almost impossible to cover because Kobe will be moving toward the basket. He can finish. He's a great finisher, but he could also stop on a dime, elevate, and just pop on you, right? Literally on you in traffic. There's an art to it. Michael Jordan had that art down to a science. He had that pop-up game. I would argue that LeBron James, like Derrick Rose, is a long-distance three-point threat, or he's a finisher. I don't see, just from a game perspective, that mid-range Glenn Robinson game that Michael Jordan had mastered. I think that Jordan, quite frankly, just had a skill set in addition to the turnaround Jay that I was talking about earlier. Jordan just had an offensive skill set to go with defensive dominance that LeBron hasn't quite yet mastered. Also, again, just from a visceral sense, just ask yourself, if you need a guy to go out there and lead your team in a game 7 of an NBA Finals or a crucial game 7 against some hated opponent. In Jordan's case, it was the Detroit Pistons. In LeBron's case, it's the Boston Celtics. But some hated, conference opponent to get to the finals. And you need your superstar to basically get everyone to follow him. And I don't believe leadership is about effort. It's about more than that. Because as much as I love Kobe, and Kobe's a great player, I don't think Kobe was the leader Michael Jordan was. Ask yourself, who would you rather lead your team? This is above and beyond talent, right? Would you want LeBron to lead your team, or would you want Michael Jordan? And I'll just put it to you this way. The people in Cleveland right now, this is while LeBron was in Cleveland, before the decision. Many people in Cleveland thought that LeBron, in a playoff game in Boston against the Celtics, gave up on that game. Right? There were questions about whether LeBron lost interest in the game. And we're talking about a game in the playoffs, right? I'm not saying LeBron lost interest in that game. All I'm saying is the question was out there. There was never that question about Michael Jordan. You understood in a big game, Michael Jordan was on the court to win it. If there was a fault with Jordan, it was that Jordan was, too much of a, I want to use a word, but it's probably not appropriate in this video. It starts with A, it ends with E. But Jordan was too much of a tight guy when it came to his teammates. He would yell at teammates. He didn't have a sense of humor with opponents. I remember one time he pushed off on Reggie Miller. He was upset. With Jordan, that fire was always burning. There were no doubts. If the owner of the Bulls ever wanted to criticize Jordan for a lack of effort, like the owner of the Cavaliers did when LeBron was leaving, in terms of saying, hey, he gave up on us in that playoff game, that Bulls owner would have been laughed out of the building, because the one thing even Jordan's enemies knew, and keep in mind, I wasn't a Bulls fan. I was a Knicks fan. You know, I you know, I rode with Patrick Ewing and Charles Smith and John Starks. Um, you know, Even opponents of Michael Jordan understood that the one thing you knew you could never question about Michael Jordan was his intensity, his leadership, his will to win. When you see a guy dominate defensively, dominate offensively, yell at teammates, um, inspire teammates, you understand you're dealing with a competitor. And quite frankly, Michael Jordan's one of the fiercest competitors I've ever come across in sports. And Ronnie Lott is another guy who was on Jordan's level. Very few others are. Right? Jerry Rice is on Jordan's level. All I can say is with LeBron, we're still finding out what level he's on. I think he's a fierce competitor, but understand there's a difference between being a fierce competitor and being Jordan level. So maybe I'm an OG. Maybe I'm just nostalgic about the 1980s and 1990s. But in my book, and again, I'm a Knicks fan. I'm not a Bulls fan. But in my book, I think I know greatness when I see it, and Michael Jordan remains the standard for, to me, any conversation on who's the best in the last 30 years. I think Jerry West, the logo, said it best. He said, when you talk about Michael Jordan, you're talking about a Babe Ruth figure. And, LeBron James, as great as he is, doesn't match Jordan in shooting percentage, points per game, steals, free throw percentage, leadership, closing ability. My vote's with Mike. Let me hear from you. Let me hear your vote. Tell us why. Thanks for watching.